before Trump won November's election, financial markets seemed almost as pleased as...
From Ursula von der Leyen, we've heard from Maroš Šefčovič, the trade commissioner then, Ollie. What do we think Europe is going to do in response to the US?
Trump's proposed tariffs on European electric vehicles have triggered a coordinated response from Germany, France and Denmark that's fracturing his advisory team, a prelude to economic chaos where economic advisors warn about global supply chain collapse while political strategists push for even more aggressive measures. The automotive sector represents over 8% of EU GDP and employs 14.6 million Europeans, numbers that explain why these nations aren't simply accepting these tariff threats. Let's dive deeper into how this trade conflict unfolded and why European countermeasures are creating the most significant challenge to Trump's trade policy to date. President Trump's proposed 100% tariff on European electric vehicles signals his most aggressive trade policy stance to date, sending shockwaves through global financial markets and automotive supply chains. This dramatic escalation comes at a pivotal moment when European manufacturers have committed unprecedented capital toward electric vehicle development, positioning themselves for a major push into North American markets. The administration justifies this move through Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act, which permits trade restrictions based on national security concerns, a rationale European officials immediately criticized as a dubious application of a statute designed for fundamentally different scenarios, particularly as it coincides with European automakers' plans to expand electric vehicle exports to North America. This tariff strategy functions with remarkable precision, akin to a surgical strike rather than a broad assault. By targeting electric vehicles while maintaining lower rates on traditional combustion engines, Trump creates an asymmetric barrier that specifically undermines Europe's electric mobility leadership. This approach effectively selects winners and losers in the automotive sector, penalizing manufacturers specifically for their investments in green technology. Economic analysis contradicts key aspects of the administration's rationale. European automakers have established extensive manufacturing operations throughout the United States, creating hundreds of thousands of American jobs and contributing significantly to local economies. These investments represent a form of economic integration that complicates simplistic notions of national interest, with many European vehicles containing substantial percentages of American-made components and labor. Within Trump's advisory team, a stark divide has emerged. Economic experts warn of catastrophic disruptions to integrated supply chains where components cross borders multiple times during production, making distinctions between American and European vehicles increasingly artificial, while political strategists push for aggressive trade measures that appeal to specific voting demographics, prioritizing electoral advantages over economic stability. The full economic impact assessment projects profound consequences for automotive manufacturing globally. Supply chains developed over decades of increasing integration would face immediate pressure to restructure, creating inefficiencies and cost increases that would inevitably reach consumers. American manufacturers dependent on European components would face their own challenges, potentially undermining the intended benefits for domestic producers. What's particularly notable is the unprecedented coordination emerging among European nations in response to this threat. Traditional competitors in the automotive sector are now aligning their interests, recognizing this tariff as an existential challenge to Europe's industrial future. German, French, and other European manufacturers that typically compete fiercely are now developing joint strategies to address what they perceive as a common threat to their long-term viability. At the epicenter of this European coordination stands Germany's automotive industry, the economic powerhouse now facing potential devastation with a staggering 17 billion euros in annual exports hanging in the balance. This represents an existential threat to the foundation of Europe's largest economy, where the automotive sector constitutes 5% of Germany's total GDP and directly employs 786,000 workers, with millions more positions at risk in supporting industries from specialized component manufacturing to logistics and service providers. The timing transforms this situation into a perfect storm. German automakers have committed over 100 billion euros to electric vehicle development specifically crafted with American market expansion in mind. These investments, akin to a meticulously constructed cathedral now teetering on unstable ground, represent the largest industrial transformation in Germany's post-war history and would crumble overnight should the proposed tariffs take effect. Models designed for American consumers and optimized supply chains would transform from strategic assets into financial liabilities. Internal assessments from the German Ministry of Economy project job losses exceeding 145,000 if these punitive tariffs persist beyond 6 months, a workforce reduction that would devastate entire communities built around automotive manufacturing, particularly in regions like Baden-Württemberg and Bavaria, where vehicle production forms the economic backbone of numerous mid-sized cities. The nation's automotive giants aren't passively awaiting their fate. BMW, Mercedes-Benz, and Volkswagen have initiated comprehensive contingency planning, including production shifts to existing North American facilities. However, these operations face fundamental capacity constraints that would require years of expansion and billions in additional investment to match current European output levels. In an unprecedented move signaling the severity of the threat, Chancellor Olaf Scholz has established an emergency economic task force with extraordinary authority to develop countermeasures, the governmental front line in Germany's dual theatre response. On the diplomatic battlefield, German industrial associations have mobilized intensive lobbying efforts in Washington, emphasizing the deeply interconnected nature of modern automotive supply chains and the inevitable collateral damage to American manufacturing from disrupted production networks. Behind closed doors, the German government has initiated confidential discussions with the European Commission regarding potential World Trade Organization violations, while simultaneously preparing unilateral responses. A two-track approach providing maximum flexibility as the situation evolves. The economic implications extend far beyond immediate export losses, with projections indicating a 1.2% reduction in national GDP within the first year of implementation. This contraction would trigger cascading effects throughout Germany's interconnected economy, potentially pushing the nation into recession and undoing years of careful economic growth. The projected GDP contraction facing Germany represents just one dimension of a rapidly evolving trade confrontation. Behind diplomatic niceties, France, Germany, and Denmark have quietly assembled what one White House advisor termed the most coordinated European economic response since the Marshall Plan. But in reverse, their strategy systematically exploits vulnerabilities in America's economic and political landscape. This European comeback squad has developed a clear three-phase counter-strategy. Phase 1 deploys $15 billion in targeted tariffs on American exports from politically sensitive regions, from Iowa corn to Silicon Valley services. Phase 2 introduces regulatory barriers affecting technology and financial sectors, creating a labyrinth of compliance costs. The final phase unleashes the financial artillery. Potential restrictions on European pension fund investments in US markets, affecting capital availability and stock valuations across Wall Street. While the European Commission traditionally handles trade disputes, this trilateral coalition marks a fundamental shift. These three economic powers have established direct coordination channels operating alongside EU structures while maintaining technical compliance with union rules, creating a diplomatic fast-track that delivers unprecedented response speed while preserving legal protections. The coalition overcame traditional European divisions by transforming former disagreements into strategic advantages. Historical responses to American tariffs were hampered by conflicts between export-dependent economies like Germany and more protectionist-leaning nations like France. Their breakthrough strategy begins with symbolically potent but economically modest tariffs, before systematically escalating to target industries in electoral battleground states if negotiations fail. Each nation brings distinct leverage to this economic chess match. France's Macron serves as the diplomatic strategist, conducting extensive outreach to American officials while precisely outlining countermeasures targeting industries in critical electoral states. Germany provides industrial and economic weight as Europe's manufacturing powerhouse. Denmark contributes unexpected financial leverage through its massive pension funds, holding investments exceeding $380 billion in American markets. A financial sword of Damocles hanging over US markets. The coalition's unified response maximizes political rather than merely economic impact by targeting Republican-leaning agricultural exports, Democratic stronghold digital services, and swing state pharmaceutical industries. Their direct outreach to American automotive manufacturers creates domestic corporate pressure from America's own industrial base. This strategy extends beyond traditional tariffs into regulatory battlegrounds, including accelerated digital service taxes and enhanced scrutiny of American corporate compliance with European standards, imposing substantial costs without technically violating trade agreements. The result is an economic defense system as sophisticated as it is formidable. While European strategic countermeasures remain theoretical until tariffs are imposed, Tesla has already experienced the devastating impact of European market rejection. The American electric vehicle manufacturer has watched its sales plummet by a staggering 76% in Germany during February 2025, following a 60% decline in January. This collapse is particularly striking because it occurred during a period when the overall German electric vehicle market grew by 30.8%, indicating a targeted rejection of Tesla specifically rather than a broader market downturn. Tesla serves as the canary in the coal mine for American manufacturers in Europe, providing a tangible preview of potential broader economic consequences if formal trade barriers materialize. The company's manufacturing facility in Germany now operates at just 65% capacity despite recent expansions, creating significant financial pressure that compounds its global challenges. This dramatic market shift began months before the current tariff tensions emerged, triggered by factors unrelated to formal trade policy. European automotive manufacturers have capitalized on Tesla's decline to reclaim market dominance. Volkswagen, BMW, and Renault have rapidly expanded their electric vehicle offerings with models calibrated to European consumer preferences, regulatory standards, and cultural expectations. Their success in gaining market share demonstrates the resilience of domestic European manufacturing and provides European negotiators with compelling evidence that their automotive ecosystem can thrive without American imports if necessary. The financial repercussions extend beyond consumer sales. Danish pension funds, Academic Pension and Pension Denmark have completely divested from Tesla, withdrawing over $46 billion in investment capital. This financial exodus demonstrates the vulnerability of American companies to European institutional investment decisions and establishes a precedent for how financial institutions might respond to broader trade confrontation. Simultaneously, regulatory pressure has intensified alongside consumer rejection. The European Commission has launched formal investigations into Tesla's business practices, examining potential issues in data privacy, consumer protection, and labor standards. These investigations could result in substantial penalties or operational restrictions, illustrating how European authorities can leverage their regulatory framework to apply pressure on American companies without implementing formal tariffs. This combination of declining sales, investment withdrawal, and regulatory scrutiny creates a comprehensive picture of Tesla's vulnerability in the European market. This situation provides European negotiators with tangible evidence that American automotive manufacturers need access to European consumers more than European consumers need access to American vehicles. For American trade strategists, Tesla's European difficulties should serve as a warning about the vulnerability of American exports to consumer and regulatory rejection, even before formal trade barriers are established. The ripple effects from these trade tensions extend far beyond corporate balance sheets to reshape the actual vehicles available in your local dealership. While European manufacturers prepare contingency plans that include withdrawing entire model lines from the American market, consumers face the paradoxical outcome of a trade policy ostensibly designed to expand choice, fewer options at substantially higher prices. The economic impact on consumers would be immediate and substantial. European electric vehicles would face price increases of 35 to 70% under full tariff implementation, transforming market categories overnight. Imagine a family that saved for years to purchase a Volkswagen ID.4, arriving at the dealership to discover their $45,000 budget now falls dramatically short of the $76,000 price tag, effectively eliminating an entire category of vehicles from middle-class consideration. Similarly, luxury models like the Mercedes EQS would surge from $105,000 to $175,000, moving them from attainable luxury to ultra-exclusive territory. European manufacturers are strategically pivoting in response. Mercedes-Benz and BMW have accelerated development of American-manufactured electric vehicles, though these variants will inevitably differ from European versions in features and performance. Smaller manufacturers without American production facilities face stark choices: abandon the market entirely or attempt to pass enormous price increases to an evaporating customer base. The proposed tariff structure creates concerning market distortions that threaten climate progress. By targeting electric vehicles while leaving combustion engines relatively unaffected, the policy artificially undermines EV price competitiveness precisely when technological advancements are achieving cost parity. This creates a perverse incentive. Traditional gasoline vehicles suddenly become more affordable than their electric counterparts, potentially reversing the sustainable transportation transition. American manufacturers' initial celebration has cooled as European retaliatory measures threaten their Atlantic expansion plans. Ford and General Motors, having invested heavily in European growth strategies, now confront uncertain prospects as European regulators signal parallel import restrictions. In this transatlantic trade standoff, Chinese EV producers emerge as the unexpected beneficiaries, like a third competitor quietly advancing, while two rivals remain locked in mutual combat. Industry analysts project Chinese manufacturers could exploit the market disruption to establish themselves as global players in both regions. The manufacturing complications extend throughout complex component supply chains. Vehicles assembled in America but utilizing European batteries, motors, or control systems face production challenges that defy simple national categorization. The result is a manufacturing environment driven by regulatory avoidance rather than efficiency or consumer benefit. For consumers, the consequences materialize as higher prices, fewer choices, and delayed innovation, effectively restricting entire vehicle categories from American showrooms, while diverting research resources to regulatory compliance rather than technological advancement. History paints a sobering picture of what's at stake in this emerging trade conflict. The US-China trade war showed how disputes disrupt markets, reshape supply chains, and increase consumer prices. This represents a fundamental test of the post-World War II economic order that has delivered unprecedented prosperity across the Atlantic. The consequences extend beyond automobiles. Industry leaders warn that EV tariffs could undermine the transition to cleaner technologies, potentially derailing climate agreements. Workers and families will bear the burden through higher prices and job insecurity in manufacturing communities. As the storm of tariffs looms, all eyes remain on Washington and Brussels. The coming months will reveal whether diplomacy prevails or if we witness the beginning of a new economic Cold War, one that could permanently alter global trade and cooperation. What price are we willing to pay for economic nationalism in an interconnected world?